Welcome to the Easy English Podcast. I'm Noor, and in this episode, we're diving into practical ways to boost your English listening and speaking skills. Have you ever found yourself understanding written English perfectly, but feeling a knot of uncertainty when it comes to speaking? Or perhaps you struggle to keep pace with rapid conversations and find it hard to articulate your thoughts clearly. If any of this resonates with you, then you're in the right place. This episode is designed to help you navigate real-life English situations, enhancing both your listening comprehension and speaking confidence. We'll share personal anecdotes and tangible examples that illustrate how to apply English in everyday scenarios. By listening to these stories, you'll naturally pick up essential phrases, common expressions, and clever tricks to better understand native speakers. Let's begin with a story about Omar, who recently embarked on a business trip abroad. Omar's role involves interacting with clients, so daily English communication was a must. Initially, he felt nervous. The English spoken at work was a far cry from what he learned in school. It was faster, packed with idioms he didn't recognize. However, after a few days, Omar had a breakthrough. He didn't need to grasp every single word. The most crucial part was understanding the main idea. Omar recounted how his colleague, Layla, once told him, "Don't sweat the small stuff. Just focus on the big picture." At first, Omar didn't fully grasp Layla's advice. But as he continued practicing and listening, he realized that focusing on the overall meaning rather than agonizing over individual words made communication significantly easier. This brings us to another story about Reem, a student who moved to an English-speaking country for college. Initially, Reem found it challenging to participate in group discussions. Everyone spoke so quickly, and slang words were often thrown around, leaving Reem puzzled. But she didn't give up. Reem started listening to podcasts and watching movies in English. One day, while chatting with a classmate about a movie they both enjoyed, Reem surprised herself by using a phrase she'd picked up from a podcast. Her classmate smiled and exclaimed, "Wow, Reem, your English is really getting better." This boosted Reem's confidence and proved that practicing in real-life situations like casual conversations is key to becoming more fluent. You don't need to go on a business trip or move to another country to improve your English. Everyday conversations, whether in person, online, or even through podcasts like this one, can make a huge difference. I recall a time when I had to give a presentation in English. I was initially worried about making mistakes. But then I realized the audience cared more about my message than my grammatical errors. So, I focused on speaking clearly, expressing my ideas, and using vocabulary I was comfortable with. This made me feel more confident and helped me convey my message effectively. You can do the same in your daily life. Start practicing English by talking to your friends, family, or even strangers. The more you speak, the better you'll become. Don't fear making mistakes. They're an essential part of the learning process. Consider Noor's experience. She had been diligently practicing her listening skills, immersing herself in English songs, TV shows, and online conversations. One day, Noor shared an interesting experience from her volunteering work. She was speaking with a native English speaker for the first time and felt incredibly nervous. Instead of dwelling on potential mistakes, Noor focused on keeping the conversation flowing. She used phrases she knew and didn't hesitate to ask for clarification when something was unclear. As a result, she had a wonderful conversation that strengthened both her speaking and listening skills. Let's explore more examples to help you feel confident in both listening and speaking English. Take Bilal's story. He works in a bustling office where English is the primary language. Initially, Bilal struggled to understand everything his colleagues said due to their fast pace, idioms, and varied accents. However, after a team meeting one day, Bilal had an important realization. Passive listening wouldn't cut it. He needed to be an active participant in conversations. So, Bilal decided to take small steps. He began asking questions whenever he didn't understand something. Instead of feeling embarrassed, he started saying, "Sorry, could you explain that again? I didn't quite catch it." His colleagues were happy to help, which not only improved his listening, but also made him more comfortable speaking. Bilal learned that by being active, he was simultaneously enhancing his listening and speaking. Then there's Layla, a young woman who moved to an English-speaking city for her dream job. The only hitch was that her English wasn't as strong as she'd hoped. At first, Layla was too shy to speak during meetings, afraid of making mistakes, so she would just listen quietly. After a few weeks, Layla noticed her colleagues often repeated themselves or slowed down when speaking to her. She felt bad, thinking they were treating her as if she couldn't understand. One day, her colleague Peter noticed this and offered unforgettable advice. "Layla, don't be afraid to speak up, even if it's not perfect. The more you speak, the faster you'll learn." Taking Peter's advice to heart, Layla started speaking more during meetings. The next time the team discussed a project, she raised her hand and presented her point. To her surprise, her colleagues not only understood, but also appreciated her input. Over time, Layla became more confident in her speaking, and her listening improved because she was no longer afraid to ask for clarification. In each of these stories, whether it's Bilal at work, Layla in her new job, or even Reem trying to improve at university, there's a common thread. They all had to take that first step to speak, even if they felt unsure. This is a crucial lesson for you too. You might feel nervous, but the more you speak, the better you'll get. And that's how your listening skills will also improve. When you speak more, you become accustomed to the rhythm and flow of the language. leading to better comprehension. Not long ago, I traveled to a new country and had to speak English daily. I had been learning English for a long time, but in real-life situations, I discovered many gaps in my knowledge. One day, at a cafe, I tried to order coffee. The barista asked a question I didn't quite understand. Instead of panicking, I smiled and said, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" He did, but this time he spoke a little slower and more clearly. I understood perfectly. After that, I was able to practice my English in many other situations, from ordering food to asking for directions, all because I wasn't afraid to ask for help. One of the best aspects of real-life conversations is that they're not just about learning vocabulary or grammar. They're about learning how people actually speak. For instance, consider the word gonna. It's not formal English, but it's a word you'll frequently hear in conversations. Native speakers use it all the time in informal situations, like, "I'm gonna go to the store," instead of, "I am going to the store." Learning these everyday expressions can significantly help you sound more natural when you speak. Let's discuss something that often puzzles learners: the difference between formal and informal English. In your daily life, you'll encounter both. For example, when emailing a boss or teacher, you might say, "I would appreciate your response at your earliest convenience." But when texting a friend, you might simply say, "Hey, can you get back to me when you can?" Both are correct, but used in different contexts. The more you practice, the better you'll understand when and how to use these different forms of English. Another helpful way to improve both listening and speaking is to watch videos in English and try to repeat what the speakers say. This technique is called shadowing. Shadowing involves listening to someone speak and repeating what they say, trying to match their speed and pronunciation. For example, you could watch an English TV show or a YouTube video and repeat what the characters say immediately after them. This will help you improve your pronunciation, intonation, and fluency. I remember the first time I tried shadowing. I watched a video of a woman explaining a recipe in English. I repeated her words, trying to match her voice tone and speed. It felt a bit strange at first, but after a few weeks, I noticed I was speaking more smoothly and with greater confidence. Shadowing is a simple but powerful technique anyone can use to enhance their skills. Now, I want to share something very important: making mistakes. Mistakes are a natural part of learning a language. You'll likely make mistakes while speaking, but that's perfectly okay. I've made plenty of mistakes myself. In fact, I still do sometimes. But every mistake is an opportunity to learn. So don't be afraid of making them. Instead, embrace them. When you make a mistake, try to correct it and learn from it. It's all part of the process. and it's how you'll improve your English over time. As we continue to explore how real-life situations can improve your English, I want you to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever had a conversation where you felt nervous, but afterward felt proud of yourself for speaking English? Think about how that moment helped you grow. Every time you speak English, even in a small conversation, you're getting better. It's through these little moments that you'll gain the confidence to speak more fluently and understand English more easily. Let's dive even deeper into how we can use real-life experiences to improve your English listening and speaking skills. We'll discuss more personal stories and relatable situations that will provide a solid understanding of how to apply your English in different contexts. Remember, as you improve your English, it's crucial to be patient with yourself. There's no need to rush. Learning English is a journey, and every small step brings you closer to fluency. When you look back at your progress, you'll see just how far you've come. Let me start by telling you about my friend Layla. Layla has been living in an English-speaking country for a couple of years now. She moved there for her job, and like many learners, she was excited but also nervous. Her biggest challenge was speaking at work. Layla works in customer service, meaning she talks to many customers throughout the day. At first, she would get really anxious whenever she had to speak on the phone, fearing she'd make a mistake or misunderstand the customer. But Layla decided to face her fears head on. One day, a situation arose that truly tested her English skills. She received a call from a very upset customer who was speaking quickly and using complex vocabulary. Layla felt the pressure but knew she couldn't avoid the situation. She took a deep breath and instead of panicking, she asked the customer to slow down. She said, "I'm sorry, could you please speak a little slower? I want to make sure I understand everything." The customer was surprised but appreciated her honesty. It turned out the customer wasn't angry with Layla. It was just a misunderstanding about a product, and everything was resolved once they clarified things. This experience taught Layla an important lesson. It's okay to ask for clarification when you don't understand something. It doesn't make you less competent. It makes you a more effective communicator. After this experience, Layla became much more confident in her conversations at work. This also improved her listening skills because she got used to slowing down conversations when necessary, allowing her to understand better. She practiced patience with herself, and in time, her confidence grew. Now, let's talk about Ali, a student who had just moved to study in an English-speaking country. Ali had taken English classes for years back home. He wondered if he would understand them, or if they would laugh if he made a mistake. On his second day, Ali had to work on a group project with some classmates. They were discussing the project in the hallway, and Ali decided to join the conversation. At first, he just listened, not wanting to make a mistake. But then one of his classmates, Noor, looked at him and said, "Ali, you have some great ideas. Why don't you tell us what you think about this part of the project?" That moment gave Ali the confidence he needed. He spoke up, shared his thoughts, and his classmates listened carefully. It felt amazing for him. Not only did he improve his speaking, but he also found that the more he participated in discussions, the more he understood. The lesson here is that speaking in English doesn't always have to be perfect. It just has to be real. The more you speak, the better you'll get. Ali learned that he could express himself in English, even if it wasn't perfect. And when you speak, your listening skills also improve, because you start to notice how people respond to you, how they explain things, and how the conversation flows. Let's now focus on real-world interactions you might encounter every day. Take the example of going to a coffee shop. You might be ordering a drink or asking for recommendations. At first, you may only know how to order a simple coffee. But after a few visits, you'll start to understand the little details in the conversation. For example, a barista might ask, "Would you like that to go or for here?" You might not know what "to go" means at first, but once you hear it a couple of times, you'll start to understand it. To go just means taking your drink with you. By practicing these small conversations, you'll start building confidence in your ability to understand and speak English in everyday situations. One of my own personal experiences comes from traveling a few years ago. I visited a country where English wasn't the primary language. However, I was able to get by because I could understand some basic English phrases I had learned over the years. I remember the first time I went to a local market. I didn't speak the local language fluently, but I knew enough English to ask the vendors questions like, "How much is this?" or "Can I have one more?" Just using these simple questions helped me feel more comfortable and connected with the people around me. I also found that many people were more than happy to help me practice my English in return. Another useful way to improve your listening and speaking is by watching TV shows, movies, or listening to podcasts in English. These are great tools because they expose you to different accents, speaking speeds, and informal language. Let me share an example from my own learning journey. A few years ago, I started watching a popular English sitcom. At first, I couldn't understand everything the characters were saying. But after watching a few episodes, I began to catch on. I even started imitating the way they spoke, their tone of voice, and their facial expressions. Watching these shows not only helped me with my speaking, but also improved my listening skills. I could understand the conversations better, and my pronunciation became clearer. When you watch these types of media, you hear natural, everyday language that will help you in real-life situations. The more you listen, the more you'll notice how words are pronounced in different ways, how some words are shortened, or how contractions are used. For example, in casual speech, "What do you want to do?" often becomes "wanna do," and "did you eat?" becomes "did ya eat?" Learning these shortcuts will help you understand what native speakers are saying more easily and make you sound more natural when you speak. Another important aspect of speaking is being able to tell a story or explain something clearly. Whether it's sharing something funny that happened to you or explaining how to do something, storytelling is a skill that can help you become more confident in English. Let me give you an example. I remember when I had to explain how to make my favorite recipe to a friend. I wasn't sure how to organize my thoughts in English, but I realized that if I broke the process down step by step, it would be easier for both of us. For example, I started with, "First, you need to gather all your ingredients," and continued by explaining each step clearly. By practicing storytelling, you can improve your speaking skills and make your conversations more engaging. Remember, learning English is not just about studying grammar or vocabulary. It's about practicing real-life communication. Whether it's talking to a stranger at a coffee shop or explaining something to a friend, every conversation you have is an opportunity to improve. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. And of course, the more you listen to how people speak, the better your understanding will be. Let's continue exploring how these everyday situations and personal experiences can help you improve your English. It's important to remember that practice makes progress, and each new experience is an opportunity to become better at understanding and speaking English. Take Sarah's experience with her new job as an example. Sarah had been studying English for years, but when she started working at a multinational company, she was nervous about speaking with her coworkers. Most of them spoke fluent English, and she often felt like they were speaking too fast or using words she didn't understand. One day, Sarah was in a meeting with her boss and two colleagues. They were discussing a new project, and Sarah found it hard to follow. Everyone seemed to know exactly what to say and how to say it, but Sarah wasn't sure if she could contribute. Instead of sitting silently, Sarah decided to speak up and ask for clarification. She raised her hand and said, "I'm sorry, could you please explain that last part again?" Her boss smiled and repeated the information more slowly, making sure Sarah understood. After that meeting, Sarah realized something important. It's okay to ask questions, and it's better to clarify things you don't understand than to stay quiet and risk missing out on key information. Sarah's confidence in asking questions grew, and soon she became an active participant in meetings, contributing her own ideas. What Sarah's experience shows us is that language is not just about knowing vocabulary or grammar, it's also about confidence. Being willing to ask for help or clarification can make a huge difference in how well you understand and speak English. This kind of proactive learning helps you build your skills and prepares you for any real-world situation where communication is key. Let's take another example, this time from a traveler's perspective. Omar, a friend of mine, traveled to an English-speaking country for the first time. He had always been good at reading English books and listening to podcasts, but he was afraid of speaking in public. When Omar arrived at the airport, he had to ask for directions to the train station. It was a simple question, but it still made him nervous. He had practiced these types of questions before, but now that he was actually there, he wasn't sure if he would understand the answer. He stepped up to the information desk and said, "Excuse me, could you please tell me how to get to the train station?" The person behind the desk smiled and gave him simple, clear directions. Omar understood everything perfectly, and he was amazed at how easy it was to follow the instructions. What he realized in that moment was that speaking English doesn't always need to be perfect. It just needs to be effective. The important thing is that he made the effort to communicate. The more Omar practiced asking questions and engaging in conversations during his trip, the more confident he became. Now let's consider a situation that many people experience: shopping. Let's say you're in a store and you want to buy something, but you're not sure how to ask for it. In a store, typical phrases you might need could include, "Do you have this in a different size?" Or, "Can you tell me how much this costs?" You might be nervous at first, but remember that these are simple phrases that can help you in so many situations. The more you practice using them, the more natural it will feel. One time, I went to a clothing store and wasn't sure about the size of a jacket. I was looking at it and thought, what if I ask the shop assistant for help, but I make a mistake? But I realized that asking for help was more important than worrying about making a mistake. I walked up to the assistant and asked, "Do you have this jacket in a smaller size?" The assistant smiled and said, "Let me check for you." She was really helpful and understood exactly what I was asking. This experience reminded me that asking questions, even if you're not completely sure, is a great way to improve your English. And remember, most people are happy to help when you show the effort to communicate. Using real-life experiences like this in your daily routine will help you become more comfortable with speaking and listening in English. Whether you're asking for directions, ordering food, or speaking with a colleague, the more you practice, the more fluent you will become. Listening to native speakers and repeating what they say will improve your pronunciation and understanding of common phrases. This kind of practice is essential to becoming confident in any language. Another powerful way to improve your listening and speaking skills is by making English a a part of your daily life. If you're an intermediate learner, you might be able to understand a lot of English already. But now, it's time to challenge yourself. One simple thing you can do is to change the language settings on your phone or computer to English. This small change can help you learn new vocabulary and phrases in a context that's relevant to your daily life. If you see a notification that says, "New message from Ali," you'll be learning vocabulary that's useful for real conversations. You can also practice listening by watching TV shows or movies in English, as I mentioned earlier. This time, try watching shows with subtitles to help improve your comprehension. One of my favorite shows to watch when I was learning English was Friends. It's full of everyday language and funny situations. I'd watch the show with English subtitles and then try to repeat the phrases exactly as the characters said them. After watching a few episodes, I realized that I was starting to speak with the same tone and rhythm as the characters. This helped me sound more natural when I spoke English in real life. Another strategy to improve your listening skills is to listen to podcasts like this one. Listening to podcasts is a great way to hear English spoken in different accents, speeds, and contexts. As you listen, pay attention to how people express themselves, their tone of voice, and how they use phrases in real conversations. Over time, you'll get better at understanding different accents and idioms. Let's also talk about a time when I had to explain something important in English. A few years ago, I was helping a friend, Amina, with her resume. She asked me to help her write a job application letter in English, and I had to explain the process step by step. We had to go over things like how to introduce yourself, what to include in the body of the letter, and how to end it politely. I remember feeling nervous because I wanted to make sure the letter sounded professional and natural. But as we worked together, I realized how important it was to break everything down into simple steps and explain things clearly. I used the same technique I had learned while practicing my own English. I explained each step in detail and made sure Amina understood. By breaking things down and explaining the process, I was able to communicate more effectively. This helped me improve both my speaking and listening skills because I had to listen closely to Amina's questions and respond with clear answers. Take the example of Sarah and her international work environment again. After a few months of asking questions, she started noticing that her coworkers were using expressions and slang that she didn't quite understand. One day, while in the office kitchen, she overheard a conversation about a big presentation, and someone said, "Let's make sure we nail it." Sarah didn't know what nail it meant, so she decided to ask her friend Jessica, who was also a colleague. Jessica explained that nail it means to do something very well or to perform perfectly. Sarah realized how much informal language was used in the workplace. And by asking about these phrases, she was slowly picking up more natural ways to speak English. Over time, she found that she wasn't just using formal English anymore. She was incorporating more casual phrases and slang that made her sound like a native speaker. This is a great example of how improving your listening skills through real-life conversations can help you learn not just vocabulary, but also the context and meaning behind the words. I want to emphasize again how important it is to ask questions in the workplace. It's often necessary to ask for clarification or further explanation. In Sarah's case, it helped her understand not only the vocabulary, but also the culture of communication in a professional setting. She wasn't shy about speaking up and making sure she understood everything fully. By doing this, she became more comfortable and confident in her ability to speak and understand English in everyday situations. Now, let's turn to something that all of us can relate to: travel. When you travel to a new place, you're constantly faced with new challenges, including the need to communicate in English. Remember, communication is not about speaking perfectly. It's about making yourself understood and understanding others. Let's say you're traveling in a city and you need to take a taxi. You don't know the exact address, but you know the general area. In these situations, it's helpful to use phrases like, "Could you take me to this area?" Or, "Do you know where this street is?" These simple phrases can help you navigate through new places with ease. During my trip to London, I had a similar experience. I didn't know exactly where my hotel was located, so I asked the taxi driver, "Can you take me to the Chelsea area?" The driver said, "Sure, I know where that is. Which street?" I was so relieved that the driver understood what I meant. This small moment made me realize how important it is to practice real-life English phrases that you will use when traveling or in any situation where you're unsure of how to express yourself. In this case, the phrase, "Can you take me to?" is simple, yet effective. By listening to real conversations and interacting with native speakers, you get to hear these useful phrases in context. And over time, you begin to use them without thinking. It becomes second nature. That's what learning English is all about. Getting to the point where it feels like a part of you, something you use without hesitation. While we're talking about traveling, let's take a look at another situation. Imagine you're in a restaurant and you need to ask for something. Maybe you want to change your order or ask for extra water. The way you phrase things matters. You don't want to sound rude, so it's good to be polite but direct. You might say, "Excuse me, could I change my order?" Or, "Would it be possible to get some extra water? These small changes can make your conversation sound more natural and polite. Once, when I was dining at a restaurant, I wanted to change my meal after it arrived, but I wasn't sure how to ask. I had to gather my courage and say, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, but I was wondering if I could change my order." The waiter smiled and said, "Of course, no problem." It was a simple interaction, but it made me feel more confident about speaking in English in such situations. Over time, using polite phrases like "could I" and "would it be possible" became a habit, and I found myself using them effortlessly in other situations as well. In every single experience like this, whether you're asking for a change in your order or asking for directions, you are practicing your listening and speaking skills. These are the kinds of real-world interactions that help you develop a natural flow in English. When you practice often, you start to notice patterns in how people speak and how they respond. This awareness helps you improve your understanding and use of the language. Now let's look at a situation involving a phone call. Sometimes it's difficult to understand everything when you're on the phone, especially if the person is speaking quickly. One day, my friend Bilal was on a phone call with a service provider to resolve an issue with his internet. The person on the other end of the line was speaking very fast, and Bilal had trouble keeping up. So he asked, "I'm sorry, could you speak a little more slowly?" Her representative agreed and repeated the information at a slower pace, which helped Bilal understand everything. In this case, asking for clarification was a simple but powerful way to ensure that Bilal could get the right information. This story teaches us an important lesson. When you don't understand something, it's completely okay to ask for the speaker to slow down or explain things again. In fact, doing so shows that you're actively engaged in the conversation and that you care about understanding. The more you do this in everyday situations, the better you'll get at listening and speaking in English. With every phone call, every conversation with a friend, or every customer service interaction, you'll be improving your skills and building confidence. Now let's turn to a different scenario, talking to a neighbor. You might not speak with them every day, but imagine you need to borrow something or ask about the neighborhood. These kinds of conversations can help you practice your English in a casual setting. I remember when I moved into my new apartment. One day, I needed to borrow a ladder from my neighbor, but I didn't know how to ask in a polite way. I walked over and said, "Hi, I hope I'm not bothering you, but would it be possible to borrow your ladder for a few hours?" My neighbor kindly agreed, and we ended up having a nice chat. This kind of casual interaction can go a long way in improving your English. By using polite phrases and keeping the conversation light, you can practice speaking and listening without feeling pressured. It's these small, daily conversations that can help you get more comfortable and fluent in English. As you can see from these stories, every interaction is an opportunity to practice your English. Whether you're in a professional setting, traveling, dining out, or just having a casual chat. Each situation can help you become a better listener and speaker. The key is to stay engaged. Ask questions when you need help, and keep practicing. The more you do this, the more natural it will feel to use English in real life. Let's continue to explore how everyday situations can provide incredible opportunities for improving your English. The more you practice in real-life scenarios, the more naturally English will start to come to you. And remember, it's not always about speaking perfectly or understanding every single word. It's about making progress and learning from each conversation. One situation that many English learners face is understanding different accents and dialects. Even within the same country, people can speak English in various ways depending on where they're from. This can be tricky, especially when you hear words or phrases that sound unfamiliar. But don't worry, this is a part of the process. Let's take a look at an example from my friend Layla. Layla recently moved to a new city, and her job required her to work with people from different parts of the country. One day, she was having a meeting with a colleague from the northern region. The colleague spoke very quickly and used some slang that Layla wasn't used to. At first, Layla felt lost because she didn't understand everything being said. However, instead of getting discouraged, she took a deep breath and decided to ask for clarification. She said, "Sorry, could you slow down a bit? I want to make sure I'll understand everything." The colleague smiled and agreed to slow down, repeating their points more clearly. Layla realized that asking for clarification was a great way to improve her listening skills. She didn't feel embarrassed about not understanding at first, and she knew that this would be a learning experience. Over time, Layla became more comfortable with different accents and slang, and she even started using some of the new expressions she had learned. Her confidence grew, and she noticed that she was listening better and understanding more in meetings. This story shows how important it is to be patient and proactive when it comes to listening. It also highlights that accents and dialects can be challenging, but they offer you an opportunity to learn new phrases, expressions, and ways of communicating. By asking questions and taking the time to learn, you can improve your ability to understand different speakers and adapt your own English skills accordingly. Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about a situation where you need to handle a customer service call in English. A lot of learners get nervous about making phone calls in English because it's harder to understand people on the phone, and sometimes the connection isn't clear. But this is an excellent chance to practice your listening and speaking skills. I'll share an experience from my friend Amina, who had to deal with a billing issue with her internet provider. When Amina called the customer service center, the representative's accent was a bit thick, and Amina found it hard to catch every word. She was feeling a little nervous at first, but then she remembered that she could ask the representative to repeat things if needed. Amina said, I'm sorry. Could you say that again? I didn't catch the last part. The representative patiently repeated the information, speaking a little slower this time. Amina also wrote down important details, making sure she didn't miss anything. As Amina got more familiar with the process, she felt more confident. She also realized that listening to customer service calls could help her improve her listening skills, because it's a common scenario that involves both formal and informal language. After the call, Amina felt proud of herself for handling the situation and was excited to practice more phone conversations in English. This example shows that customer service calls are a great way to practice English, especially in situations where you need to be clear and precise. If you're ever in doubt, just ask the person to repeat what they've said or to speak more slowly. Most people are happy to help, and it's a wonderful way to build your confidence. Plus, you're learning how to communicate in situations where clear language is essential. Another situation that's great for practicing your English is attending a social gathering, like a party or a family event. These informal settings give you the chance to practice conversational English with people who may not be concerned with grammar or formal language. It's all about having fun and connecting with others. Let me tell you about a conversation I had at a friend's birthday party. At the party, I found myself talking to someone I hadn't met before. We started chatting about our favorite hobbies, and I asked, "So, what do you like to do in your free time?" The person smiled and replied, "I love hiking. I go every weekend, no matter the weather." I was excited because I also enjoyed hiking, and the conversation naturally continued. We talked about different hiking trails, shared experiences about outdoor adventures, and even exchanged some tips. The best part was that I didn't worry about making mistakes while speaking. It was a relaxed conversation, and I was able to practice asking questions and responding without the pressure of speaking perfectly. This experience was a great reminder that informal conversations are a great way to practice listening and speaking in real-life situations. When you're speaking with people you know, the pressure to be perfect is much lower, and you can focus more on the flow of the conversation. Asking open-ended questions like, "What do you like to do in your free time?" helps keep the conversation going, and you can naturally pick up new vocabulary and expressions along the way. What's even more amazing about informal conversations is that you're learning more than just new words. You're learning how people communicate in different situations, how they express themselves, and how they interact. These are the skills that will help you become a more fluent speaker. You'll start to notice how people emphasize certain words, how they use gestures or tone of voice, and how they express emotions. All of these elements play a role in making your English sound more natural and authentic. Now let's talk about another scenario, meeting someone for the first time. Whether it's in a professional or social setting, introducing yourself and having a conversation with someone new can be a little intimidating. But it's also a fantastic opportunity to practice your English. Let's take a look at an example with my friend Bilal. Bilal recently attended a networking event. At the event, Bilal introduced himself to a fellow attendee by saying, "Hi, my name's Bilal. It's nice to meet you. What do you do for work?" The other person smiled and responded, "I'm a graphic designer. I create digital art for companies. What about you?" Bilal was able to continue the conversation by talking about his own job, and they spent the next 10 minutes discussing their work. He wasn't worried about his English skills. Instead, he focused on being friendly and curious. By the end of the conversation, they had exchanged business cards and agreed to connect on LinkedIn. Bilal's experience shows how important it is to be confident in speaking English, especially when meeting new people. You don't have to worry about making mistakes as long as you're friendly, polite, and open to learning from the conversation. By asking simple questions like, "What do you do for work?" you can easily get a conversation started and improve your speaking skills. Plus, you'll pick up new vocabulary and expressions that you can use in future interactions. In every scenario we've talked about today, from casual conversations at a party to formal meetings or networking events, the most important thing is to keep practicing. Every conversation, no matter how small, is a chance to improve. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Repeat things you didn't understand, and make mistakes along the way. The more you practice listening and speaking, the more confident you'll become. By continuing to engage in real-world situations and using English in different contexts, you'll see improvements in both your listening and speaking skills. Remember, learning a language is a journey, and each step you take brings you closer to your goal of speaking English fluently and confidently. Now that we've explored how important it is to practice English in real-life situations, let's dive deeper into how different environments can shape your learning experience. Each new scenario you encounter will bring out different aspects of your language skills. And the more diverse your practice, the better you'll become at understanding and speaking English naturally. Think about your own life. How many opportunities do you have every day to use English in some way? By actively engaging with the language, you'll continue to make significant progress in both listening and speaking. One excellent way to improve your English is by watching TV shows, movies, and videos in English. This type of immersive learning is incredibly effective because it exposes you to natural conversation, different accents, and even cultural references that you might not encounter in textbooks. Let me tell you about my friend Omar, who used this method to take his English to the next level. Omar was already a good English speaker, but he felt like he wasn't improving as much as he wanted to. He decided to start watching TV shows and movies in English without subtitles. so he could train his ear to understand different accents and ways of speaking. At first, it was a bit challenging for Omar to catch everything, especially when the characters spoke quickly or used slang. But he stuck with it. He started watching his favorite shows, like Friends and The Office. But this time, he didn't rely on subtitles to understand what was happening. He would watch each episode multiple times, listening carefully and focusing on the words and phrases he didn't understand. After a while, Omar realized that he was picking up on words and expressions he'd never learned in class. He could now follow the storyline much more easily, and his listening comprehension improved significantly. Omar's experience shows how watching media in English can expose you to various language styles, helping you get used to different tones, emotions, and ways of speaking. It's not only about understanding the words, it's about understanding the rhythm, the pace, and the cultural context. So if you love watching TV or movies, try to do it in English without subtitles. You'll be surprised at how much it helps you improve your listening skills. And you'll also start picking up new phrases to use in everyday conversation. Next, let's think about how engaging with English content online can help you in your learning journey. The internet is full of great resources that you can use to practice English, whether it's through blogs, social media, or YouTube videos. For example, Reem, another friend of mine, found a YouTube channel that teaches English through real-life conversations. She started watching the videos daily and listening to the different situations the hosts were discussing. At first, it was hard for her to keep up with the fast pace of the conversations, but she didn't give up. Instead of just passively watching the videos, Reem started actively engaging with the content. She paused the videos when she didn't understand something, rewound them to hear a specific phrase again, and even took notes on the new words and expressions she wanted to learn. After a month of consistent practice, Reem noticed that she was able to understand the conversations much better, and she felt more comfortable speaking about the topics covered in the videos. She even started leaving comments on the videos in English, which helped her practice writing as well. As you can see, there are many ways to improve both your listening and speaking skills. Whether it's through media, language exchange, or group discussions, the key is to stay engaged and practice regularly. The more opportunities you take to use English in different situations, the more confident you will become in your abilities. Don't be afraid to make mistakes or ask for clarification when you need it. Each conversation is a chance to learn and grow, and with time, your skills will improve. So remember, practice makes progress. By using English in real-world situations, engaging with different types of content, and seeking out opportunities to practice speaking with others, you're taking important steps toward becoming a more confident and fluent English speaker. Keep practicing, and you'll continue to see improvements in your listening, speaking, and overall language abilities. Reem's method shows how online resources can provide endless opportunities to improve both your listening and writing skills. By actively engaging with English content online, you can practice at your own pace and focus on topics that interest you. It's also a great way to expose yourself to the kinds of English that native speakers use in their everyday lives, which will help you sound more natural in conversations. Another excellent way to improve your English listening and speaking is by engaging in language exchanges with native speakers. This is a fantastic opportunity to practice speaking in a relaxed, low-pressure environment. Language exchange can happen in many ways, either through apps, websites, or even in person. Let me share the story of Ali, a friend of mine who used a language exchange app to find a speaking partner. Ali wanted to improve his English for work purposes, but he didn't have many opportunities to practice with native speakers. So he signed up for a language exchange app and found someone named Sarah, who was a native English speaker learning his native language. At first, Ali was a little nervous about speaking with someone who was fluent in English. But Sarah was kind and patient. They started by introducing themselves and talking about their hobbies. Ali asked Sarah questions like, "What do you enjoy doing in your free time?" And, "Have you ever traveled to my country?" They chatted about their interests, and Sarah even helped Ali with pronunciation and grammar when he made mistakes. Over time, Ali's confidence grew, and he was able to speak with Sarah more fluently. Their conversations were not only a great way for Ali to practice speaking, but also helped him improve his listening skills as he had to understand Sarah's responses quickly. The best part about language exchanges is that they give you the opportunity to practice with a native speaker in a real conversational context. You get to hear the natural flow of conversation, and you can ask questions about things you don't understand. It's also a great way to build relationships and get feedback on your speaking abilities. If you haven't tried a language exchange yet, I highly recommend giving it a go. Whether it's online or in person, practicing with a native speaker can help you tremendously in improving your English skills. One more strategy for improving your listening and speaking is participating in group discussions or debate clubs. This is particularly helpful if you want to work on your speaking skills in more formal settings, like at school or work. I'll tell you about Bilal, who joined a local debate club to improve his English. Bilal wasn't very confident in his speaking abilities, but he loved discussing topics like politics, science, and current events. He thought that joining a debate club would be a fun way to practice English and get better at expressing his opinions clearly at first. Bilal felt out of his comfort zone at first. He didn't always know how to express his thoughts clearly, and sometimes struggled to understand the other participants. But as he kept attending the debates, he started to get better. He learned how to listen carefully to others, take notes, and think critically about the arguments being presented. Bilal also became more confident speaking in front of a group. Over time, he realized that participating in debates wasn't just about practicing speaking. It was also a great way to improve his listening skills, as he had to carefully follow what everyone was saying to respond effectively. Debate clubs are excellent for improving your speaking because they require you to organize your thoughts quickly, think on your feet, and speak persuasively. At the same time, they're a great way to sharpen your listening skills because you need to pay attention to the arguments and viewpoints of others. If you enjoy discussing different topics and want to challenge yourself, joining a debate club or group discussion could be an excellent way to practice your English. Now let's go even deeper into how you can improve your English listening and speaking by making it a part of your daily life. The best way to get better at any language is to make sure you're using it every day in real situations. Think about how you learned your native language as a child. You didn't sit in a classroom memorizing grammar rules. You listened to people around you, repeated words, and slowly started forming sentences. The same approach can work for learning English. The more you listen and practice speaking, the more natural it will become. One of the best ways to do this is to create an English on time in your day. This means setting aside a specific time, maybe 30 minutes or an hour, where you only listen to, think in, and speak English. During this time, you can watch a short English video, listen to a podcast, or even talk to yourself in English. Yes, talking to yourself might feel strange at first, but it's actually a very effective way to practice. Let me tell you about Sam, who used this method to improve his English. Sam was working at a company where many of his colleagues spoke English, but he was too nervous to join their conversations. He understood what they were saying, but he struggled to respond quickly. So he decided to set aside 30 minutes every evening where he would talk to himself in English. He would describe his day, talk about what he planned to do tomorrow, or even pretend to have a conversation with a friend. If he didn't know a word, he would look it up and try to use it in a sentence. After a few weeks, he noticed a big improvement. He felt more confident, and when he needed to speak English at work, this technique works because it helps you get comfortable forming sentences without pressure. You don't need a conversation partner to practice speaking. By talking to yourself, you train your brain to think in English, and this makes it easier to speak naturally when you do have real conversations. So try setting aside an English on time in your day and use it to practice speaking, listening, and even thinking in English. Another great way to improve your listening skills is by focusing on different types of accents. English is spoken in many countries, and depending on where you are, you might hear different accents and styles of speaking. For example, American English, British English, Australian English, and Indian English all sound slightly different. If you only practice listening to one type of English, you might struggle when you hear someone with a different accent. Let me tell you about Layla, who had this problem. She was used to watching American TV shows, so she could understand American English very well. But when she traveled to the UK, she found it difficult to understand British people because they used different words and had a different accent. For example, she didn't know that lift meant elevator in British English, or that lorry meant truck. After that experience, Layla decided to expose herself to different accents. She started listening to podcasts from different English-speaking countries, watching YouTube videos with speakers from different regions, and even practicing with English learners from around the world. After a few months, she became much better at understanding different accents, and now she feels comfortable talking to English speakers. So if you want to improve your listening skills, try listening to different types of English. You can do this by watching videos, listening to podcasts, or even changing the accent on your phone's voice assistant. The more you expose yourself to different accents, the easier it will be to understand English in real-life situations. Now let's talk about pronunciation. Many English learners struggle with pronunciation because English isn't always spoken the way it's written. Some words have silent letters, and others sound completely different from how they look. This can make it difficult to know how to pronounce words correctly. A great way to improve pronunciation is by using shadowing. Shadowing is a technique where you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say as quickly and accurately as possible. It's like an advanced version of repeating after someone. Let me give you an example. There's a student named Ali who wanted to improve his English pronunciation. He found a short audio clip of a native speaker telling a story. First, he listened to the whole clip carefully to understand it. Then, he played the clip again and tried to repeat each sentence immediately after hearing it. At first, it was difficult because the speaker talked fast, but Ali kept practicing. He listened to the same clip every day for a week, repeating after the speaker until he could say the sentences smoothly. After a month of shadowing practice, his pronunciation improved a lot, and his speech sounded much more natural. You can try shadowing by listening to podcasts, audiobooks, or videos with subtitles. Play a short sentence, pause, and repeat it. If you don't know how to pronounce a word, use an online dictionary with audio pronunciation. The more you practice shadowing, the better your pronunciation will become. Another key part of speaking English fluently is learning how to respond naturally in conversations. Many learners hesitate when speaking because they're thinking too much about grammar and vocabulary. While it's good to speak correctly, focusing too much on grammar can slow you down. Instead, try to learn common phrases and expressions that native speakers use. For example, instead of thinking about how to form a perfect sentence when someone asks, "How's your day going?" you can learn simple, natural responses like 1. "It's going well, thanks. How about you?" "Pretty good. Just a busy day at work." "Not bad, just relaxing at home." When you learn these common responses, you don't have to think too much in conversations. You can reply quickly and naturally, just like native speakers do. Let's take the example of Reem, who struggled with small talk. When people asked her simple questions like, "What do you do for fun?" or "How was your weekend?" she would pause for a long time, trying to form a perfect sentence. This made her feel nervous in conversations. But then she started learning common phrases and practicing them in front of a mirror. She learned how to respond quickly with short, natural answers. After practicing for a few weeks, she felt much more comfortable speaking. Now, when someone asks her a question, she can respond naturally, without overthinking. If you want to improve your fluency, start by learning useful phrases for everyday conversations. You can find these phrases in TV shows, movies, or even by listening to native speakers. Try practicing them out loud until they feel natural to say. Finally, let's talk about building confidence. Many English learners know a lot of vocabulary and grammar, but they still feel nervous speaking. The fear of making mistakes stops them from practicing. But here's the truth. Making mistakes is a natural part of learning any language. Even native speakers make mistakes. A great way to build confidence is by starting with small conversations. You don't need to have long, complex discussions at first. Start with short interactions like ordering food in English, asking for directions, or chatting with a store employee. These small conversations will help you get used to speaking English in real situations. I know a student named Omar who was very shy about speaking English. He avoided conversations because he was afraid of making mistakes. But then he set a goal to say at least one sentence in English every day. He started by greeting people with "Good morning" and "How are you?" Then he practiced ordering food at restaurants in English. Slowly, he built up his confidence, and now he can have full conversations without feeling nervous. So don't be afraid to speak. Start small, practice every day, and remember that mistakes are part of the learning process. The more you speak, the more confident you'll become. Let's dive deeper into even more strategies and real-life examples that can help you improve your English speaking and listening skills. Remember, Learning a new language is a journey, and the more you practice, the easier it gets. One important aspect of improving your English is understanding how to use different tenses and structures in everyday conversations. This can be a little tricky, especially when you're speaking quickly or listening to native speakers who speak in a natural, relaxed way. The good news is that there are some simple ways to practice this and get comfortable with using tenses without worrying too much about making mistakes. Take Reem, for example. She was great at understanding English when she read books or listened to podcasts. But when she started speaking, she found it hard to remember the right tenses. For instance, when talking about something she did yesterday, she would mix up the past tense with the present perfect. She would say something like, "I go to the store yesterday," instead of, "I went to the store yesterday." To fix this, Reem decided to practice forming simple sentences about her day. Every evening, she would sit down for 10 minutes and think about everything she did that day. She would write down her sentences and make sure they were using the correct tenses. Over time, Reem became more comfortable with past, present, and future tenses. And even though she made mistakes along the way, it didn't stop her from continuing to speak and practice. She was focused on communication, not perfection, which helped her feel more confident. If you want to improve your speaking, try practicing speaking about your day or your plans in different tenses. This will help you become more comfortable switching between past, present, and future tenses. It's also a good way to build more variety into your conversations. Speaking of speaking practice, one method that really helps is mimicking the speech of native speakers. This is a fun and effective way to improve both your listening and speaking skills. Native speakers use intonation, rhythm, and tone in a way that can be difficult for learners to copy. But mimicking or shadowing their speech can help you understand the natural flow of the language and improve your pronunciation at the same time. For example, let's talk about Ali, who wanted to sound more natural when he spoke English. He would watch videos of his favorite YouTubers or actors speaking English. Then he would pause the video and repeat what they said, trying to match their tone, rhythm, and pronunciation exactly. At first, it felt a little awkward, but the more he practiced, the easier it became. Ali even started using the same phrases and expressions that he heard in the videos. He found that not only did his pronunciation improve, but he also started sounding more like a native speaker when he spoke. So if you want to improve your pronunciation and fluency, start mimicking native speakers. Choose videos, movies, or podcasts that you enjoy and repeat what you hear. Don't worry if you don't get it perfect right away. The important thing is to keep practicing and focusing on the natural flow of the language. Another technique that's incredibly helpful for improving listening and speaking skills is using real-life scenarios. By practicing English in situations that you might encounter in your daily life, you can get used to the language you'll actually use. This will help you feel more prepared and confident. For instance, let's say you want to improve your ability to order food at a restaurant in English. One way to practice is by imagining a conversation. You can say things like, "I'll have the chicken salad, please," or "Can I get that without tomatoes?" Afterward, you can try writing down some variations of the same sentences. If you're not sure what phrases to use, you can listen to restaurant conversations in English on YouTube or in podcasts. By hearing the words and phrases used in context, you can start using them in your own practice. Take Sophie as an example. Sophie was a beginner English learner and had trouble ordering food at restaurants in English. She often felt shy and unsure of what to say. But then she decided to practice ordering food in front of the mirror. She pretended to be at a restaurant and would order food just like she was talking to a waiter. She practiced saying things like, "Could I please have the pizza with extra cheese?" And "Is it possible to change the drink?" After a few weeks, Sophie became much more confident. She even felt comfortable ordering food when she went out to eat. You can apply this method to any real-life situation. Whether you're practicing how to introduce yourself, ask for directions, or make small talk, try role-playing these scenarios. The more you practice these situations, the more prepared you'll be when you find yourself in them in real life. When it comes to listening, it's important to practice active listening. This means really focusing on what the other person is saying and paying attention to details. One way to do this is by listening to short audio clips or conversations and then summarizing what you heard. After listening, try to say back what you remember, or even write it down. This technique helps improve your listening comprehension and also reinforces your memory of the new words and phrases you're learning. For example, Bilal had trouble understanding spoken English, especially when the speaker talked quickly or used slang. To improve, he started listening to short news clips in English and then summarizing the main points. At first, he found it difficult to catch everything, but by practicing this every day, he began to improve. After a while, Bilal could understand news stories more easily and could even pick up on slang expressions that he didn't know before. If you want to improve your listening, try to listen to a variety of English audio clips every day. You can listen to podcasts, YouTube videos, or news stories. After listening, take a few minutes to write down or say what you remember. This will help you improve both your listening comprehension and vocabulary. Finally, let's talk about using English in your social life. Many learners feel nervous about speaking in English because they don't have enough practice. But the more you use English in everyday situations, the easier it gets. So why not start using English with your friends or family? Here's a real-life example of how using English in social situations helped one learner. Reem had been studying English for a while, but didn't feel comfortable using it in social settings. She was always worried about making mistakes. But one day, she decided to try something different. She invited a friend over and told her that they were going to speak only in English for an hour. At first, it felt awkward, but as they kept talking, Reem realized that she didn't need to worry so much about making mistakes. The more she spoke, the easier it became. After that day, Reem felt more confident using English in casual conversations. She started speaking English with her family during meals and with her friends when they hung out. Using English in social settings allowed Reem to practice in a relaxed environment, and it helped her feel more comfortable with the language overall. If you want to get better at speaking, try using English with your friends or family. You can make small changes like switching to English during a meal or having a short conversation in English each day. The more you use English in social settings, the more natural it will feel, and your speaking skills will improve quickly. Improving your English listening and speaking skills takes time and practice, but with the right techniques, it becomes much easier and more enjoyable. Whether you're mimicking native speakers, practicing real-life scenarios, or using English in social settings, every small step you take brings you closer to fluency. Remember, consistency is key. Try to listen to English every day. Speak as much as possible, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of the learning process, and the more you practice, the more confident you will become. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Easy English Podcast. If you found this helpful, make sure to come back tomorrow for more English practice. Keep going, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next episode.